Right. Just waiting for someone in YouTube to confirm that everything's good on that side, since sometimes my paranoia is justified. Okay. I will give him some time. Okay, much better. Maybe if I unmute my mic, that would actually work. But that's a wild claim. Okay, so let's think about what we have done so far. We have introduced some statements, looked at statements, negation, all those things, and just started thinking about what the statement is saying. They're starting to think a little bit more critically. And then we looked at deductive reasoning in its basic form, and we started to use deductive reasoning in some more interesting puzzles. Sometimes the deductive reasoning is pretty obvious and straightforward. Sometimes it's a whole string of them sort of put together. And it's very important that we're aware of what we're saying and thinking, because we're not always writing everything down. And then we gave some time for Lady and the Tiger puzzles, a very nice one with some variety within that kind of puzzle as well. And hopefully everyone put some time in to make sure that they can do those puzzles and understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, pros and cons of different strategies, and so on. So then, just to mix things up a little more, we have our next section, 2.4, which just has a collection of other logical puzzles. And the more variety I see, within reason, as long as it's not wildly difficult or strange, if I just see a little bit of variety, then my experience is building and I can go to a new kind of puzzle and think, okay, what have I seen that's similar to this? How can I take what I already know, my experience, and maybe modify it slightly? And we build up slowly that way, but we need to see some variety. So our first other logical puzzle is called Knights and Knaves. Now, perhaps some of you have heard about Knights and Knaves already, but I assume that you haven't. Okay, so let's read or do exercise 216. Let me write that down. Exercise 216. John and Bill are residents of an island of knights and knaves. Knights always tell the truth, while knaves always lie. Upon meeting them, John says, "We are both knaves." Determine what type of people John and Bill are. Okay. So now again, we see, oh, okay, this doesn't immediately sound exactly like anything I've seen before. But there's still the issue of people or things making statements, and those statements can, of course, be true or false. So you can go to a first strategy. Do we call it strategy 1? And it's nice, even though in the case of Lady and the Tiger, we tried the wordy strategy. Even though we ended up not really loving it, it's important to see it so that I know what I'm avoiding and why. And maybe in this case, it looks different. So it's good to consider your options before just jumping in and trusting that the strategy you try first is the best one for your purposes. Okay, so now I have two people, one is speaking, and I have the setup for the situation. So the person that is speaking is John. Now, Bill isn't saying anything in this case. Other ones, maybe Bill would be speaking as well. John is saying something. Okay, so we can start by saying, let's assume that John is a knight. I know he's one of the two. He's a knight or he's a knave. Those are the rules of this game. Let's just pick one and see where that assumption leads. And hopefully, our hope is to run into a contradiction, because then we can backtrack and say, oh, this assumption was wrong. If we don't run into a contradiction, well, then it's kind of a wasted effort. We can't really say we're correct or not. But let's see where this goes. So now we're assuming John is a knight, just temporarily. Then the rules of the game is that a knight tells the truth. Then John tells the truth. And what is he saying? He is saying, we are both knaves. He's saying they're both knaves. And he's telling the truth. So both John and Bill, in particular John, are knaves. But we assume John is a knight. He can't be a knave at the same time. He's one or the other. So this immediately contradicts our assumption that if we assume John is a knight, he's telling the truth. But based on what he's saying, if that's true, he's a knave. He can't be both. So this, oopsie, get rid of this line here. Let's say here, this contradicts our assumption. I started somewhere. I pulled the thread. So where it got me to something that can't be possible. So that means our original assumption was not correct. And we conclude the opposite, which is John is a knave. Now we know that with 100% certainty. John is a knave. See how this basic kind of reasoning, built on deductive reasoning, is coming up over and over. It came up in Karuji, came up in multiple places. Here again, we make an assumption. We see where that takes us. If we run into trouble, something that's impossible, we go back and know with certainty our assumption was not correct. How do we feel so far? So you'll see similar things come up in slightly different situations, and that's how we build our experience. No feelings at this time? We're not done. We have to finish it, but we know a lot. So John is a knave. That means...
Wait, if John says he's a knave, but knaves always lie.
Exactly.
Couldn't he be a knight then too? So that
well, we know for a fact he's a knave, because if we look at him being a knight, we run into an impossible situation where he's both, and that's impossible. So he has to be a knave. So that
Got it.
means John, you're right though, John is lying when he says they're both knaves. Let's write it out. We have actually so much time. I'm going to stretch this a little bit. When he says that they are both knaves. That's what he says,
Oh,
right?
I missed the both part. That makes sense.
Yes, both. But that's a lie. They're not both knaves. But he is a knave. So that means Bill is a knight. Oops, that's an ugly, ugly H. Get out of there, H. Okay, so we had a first part, this first part here, where we made an assumption, we ran into a contradiction, and then we can go back with 100% certainty that our assumption is not correct. And there are only two options. John is a knight or John is a knave. So John is not a knight, therefore, with certainty, John is a knave. Now we have extra knowledge that we've figured out, and now we continue with this extra knowledge. John being a knave, he's lying. In this case, he says, we're both knaves. That's now a lie. That's not true. But he is a knave. So then Bill can't be a knave as well. Bill has to be a knight. Because both being knaves is not true. So Bill is a knight. Another 100% certainty. Now you might look at this and think, whoa, he's saying he's 100% sure. I am very much not. And that is the downside of the strategy one. It's the wordy one again. But sometimes it's good, even though it doesn't feel good. It's good to see something that I want to avoid so that I can know to avoid it. If I don't know it's there, I don't know the pros and cons, I might stumble onto it and do it again and run into trouble. So again, the pros and cons of this strategy is if you can follow it, when it works, it's quite efficient. I stretched it out with a lot of words. The downside is in the beginning, when you're just starting to get a hold of these things, these concepts, it is more difficult. And it's much easier to get confused, especially when you have to come up with these sentences in your argument. And there is the added difficulty that if we look at, we're going to do another one over here, then from one question to the next, even though the setting is the same, my starting position might not be the same. In knights and knaves, you can get away with almost always starting like this, but in general, the starting point's different. The flow of the strategy is different. Every time it's different, even though it's the same strategy. Those are things that create confusion. So now we have to think, well, okay, fine. He wasted 10 minutes of my life because I already knew I didn't like strategy one. But that means we have to do something else. So now I have to look at what do I already know, what do I have experience with that I can slightly modify perhaps, but take into this and apply it here. So I know from Lady and the Tiger that if I can list all the possibilities and have that list not be overwhelming, then it's a more consistent way, a more consistent approach where I can just work my way through the few possibilities, and I'm going to have to find one because it's one of those possibilities. So I don't have doors, and where are we now? Over here. I don't have doors. I have people. Those people can be different types. possibly. But the people they don't change. I have John and I have Bill. They're there regardless of what kind they are. So now, what are the possible scenarios for the type of people they could be? Well, John could be a knight and Bill could be a knight. That is possible. John could be a knight. That is the ugliest K ever. I'm making it worse. Please stop. And Bill, I'm gonna have to stop. Let's go back. Let's rewrite that guy. John could be a knight, or Bill could be a knave. Oops, got away from me there. Apparently Monday morning is not the writing morning. Or it could be the other way around. John could be a knave, Bill could be a knight. Or they could both be knaves. But you have to be sure that those are the only scenarios that are possible given the rules of this puzzle. Is everyone happy that nothing else could possibly happen?
In this case, yeah.
Yes, of course, in this situation. So that makes me feel pretty good because that means I only have 4 scenarios to check. That's not overwhelming at all. Now, this is looking very similar to Lady and the Tiger. And my strategy feels much better. That I'm going to look at this first scenario. Can the knight-knight combination be what's happening? Now, I know we've already found the answer, but we didn't like how we got there. And I'm not confident that I can do that every single time, perhaps. So I'm redoing it with a different strategy and try and find something that I have more confidence in going forward. Okay. I built a lot of confidence with Lady and the Tiger, so I want to take that with me as much as I can. Now I investigate. In this scenario of them both being a knight, how do they behave? And then I'll match it with how the rules say they should behave, like the king is saying the rules of the game. But I'll leave the rules a little bit to the end to try and be as similar to Lady and the Tiger as possible. So, John is the only one who speaks in this case, so I'm only going to investigate John. John says, we are both knaves. In this scenario, that is very much false. But they're not both knaves. They're not even close. Now, I'm not investigating what Bill says because he's not speaking. Now I look at the rules of the game, which says if John is a knight, he must tell the truth. In my scenario, John is a knight, but he's not telling the truth. That goes against the rules of the game. That goes against how he should be behaving under the assumption of being a knight. So it's not possible. Now I know I can streamline this. I am not doing that on purpose because I want to get as far away from strategy 1 as I can. Any sort of streamlining of this and you're dipping your toes into strategy 1 and it gets a little confusing for some. So I'm doing my straightforward. I only have 4 possible scenarios here. Doing them one at a time is not requiring a shortcut. It's not wasting time. Okay. Now the second one is going to be very similar. John says, we are both knaves. That is false. They're not both knaves in this scenario I'm currently investigating. Now I look at the rules because Bill doesn't speak. And it says that if John is a knight, he has to tell the truth. And in our scenario, he's not. So again, it's not possible. So it's very similar. I know you could have streamlined it. I don't want to. There are many ways to go about this. I'm trying to find the way that gives me the most confidence from one question to the next. That if I go into a knights and knaves question, I know what I'm doing. Before I even read what they're specifically saying, I have confidence going in, and that makes all the difference right now. So sadly, it's not this scenario either. I'm not discouraged. I have two more. It's very quiet. Is it because it's Monday, or because it's very confusing, or because it's too easy? I'm hoping it's one of those.
Monday, I think.
Monday. Okay, I'll take that. As long as it's not the very confusing part, because then you need to speak up. Okay, I have two more. I'll go to my next one. And your list could look different, right? Well, different order, but the same scenarios. This is my next one. I don't know which one it is. Okay, knave, knight. So John is speaking. He says, we are both knaves, true or false? See, that was a question, which means you should say something.
False.
Everyone happy that it's false?
No.
Not happy. Okay. Remember, we're putting blinders on. We're just looking at this scenario. Nothing else matters. Nothing else exists at this stage. And we're assuming. Let's assume this combination is happening, actually, where John is a knave, Bill is a knight. Under that assumption, how is John behaving when he says we are both knaves? Is he telling the truth or is he lying? We are both knaves. He's lying. Right? Now I compare that behavior to how the rules of this puzzle say he should behave. And the rules say that anyone who's a knave must lie. In our scenario, he is a knave and he is lying. So that checks out. He is behaving as he should be behaving. Bill doesn't say anything, so all the information I have, it all fits together. It's consistent. And this is possible in the sense that there's nothing that says it's not possible. That doesn't mean it's the right answer. It just means I can't throw it out because I didn't run into a contradiction. I'm always hoping for a contradiction. But if I don't get one, I can't throw it out. This is only the right answer if all other possibilities are eliminated. And I see people make that mistake because they bring in the assumption that this question is well set up, and if I found something that's possible, it's the right answer. Well, that's true, and you're welcome to stop there, but if you're out there looking at random puzzles, you don't know. It could be a trick question, it could be all kinds of things. So if I stop there, technically, it's abductive reasoning. It's not 100% certain. I'm going with what's likely. If I find one that's possible, it's likely that that's the answer. But it's only 100% certain if I've eliminated all other possibilities. Whatever's left, whatever it is, has to be the right answer. So for that reason, and I want to practice, I will check the last scenario. All right. Knave, knave is the scenario I am checking. I know I have a box around that one. I can't erase it. Knave, knave. John says, we are both knaves. True or false? I'm just getting
That's
you.
true.
True.
Didn't say it was hard. I'm just getting you to participate. But John being a knave means he should tell a lie always. And in this scenario, he is telling the truth. He's not behaving the way he should. Can't happen. Not possible.
Sorry, why would it be true in that case if they were both knaves, if John said that?
He says, we are both knaves. And that's exactly the current scenario we're looking at.
Okay, so it would just be if it matched up with the. Okay, sorry.
So it's all, no, it's fine. It's all a matter of not looking at everything at once. There are the rules, like the things the king says, and then there are the things the people say, the doors or whatever. And it's important to pick one. Which am I going to do first? And then which one am I going to use to compare that against? They have to agree with each other. The rules of the game have to agree with what the things are saying, people in this case. So I have to pick which one am I doing first. I could certainly do it the other way around, but I find that a little bit more confusing. So I want to be as similar to the Lady and the Tiger as possible. And what did we do there? See, we're building on that again. So it's very important that the Lady and the Tiger questions and how we approach that is rock solid. And you know exactly how that worked because we're building on it. There, we looked at how the doors were behaving, what the doors were saying, and then we matched it to what the king says, how they should behave, the rules, to decide if it's possible or not. We're doing exactly the same thing here. I'm building on that experience that I gained over the last 3 days. So, and if the Lady and the Tiger situations and what we did there is in any way shaky, you need to go back and do that first. Absolutely. And then it'll hopefully make more sense. But of course, I assume we've done that. What else would we do over the weekend? There's nothing else to do. Lady and the Tiger, all the time. Ladies and tigers. So, we now found in this last scenario that something doesn't match up. So the whole thing is therefore not possible. And now I have eliminated all but one scenario, and therefore, with certainty, it has to be what is happening. I'll write that out. John is a knave. Bill is a knight. Now, is that what we found here in our strategy 1? Yes, it is. Of course, the end result has to be the same. It's about which path do we want to take to get there? Which path fills us with the most confidence going into the next variation? Slowly building up experience. Well, it makes the most sense to take what I have learned before and try and adapt that and apply it to this one. If you have picked strategy 1 for Lady and the Tiger, well, good luck. But then it makes sense to try and stick to that. But that's not the way we went, for obvious reasons, for the sake of simplicity. So I'm trying to make this look as much like Lady and the Tiger as possible, building on what I have seen before. Let's try it again and see if that maybe feels better. I've lost my ability to scroll. There we go. Problem solved. Next one. So I wrote some stuff there. Exercise 217. I'm trying to hide the answer. We want to talk about the answer. We don't want to see the answer. 217. That is our next one. Now, we don't have as many knights and knave questions as we did Lady and the Tiger. There's not as much variety. There's no king that mixes things up too much. So we only have these 2. John and Bill, residents of an island of knights and knaves, same thing. Knights always tell the truth, knaves always lie. Now I meet them, and they both speak. Bill decided to speak as well. I can read what they say, but right now it means nothing to me, because I'm not ready for that step. I have to set things up first. Now, seeing it's a knights and knave question, I've seen this question before. I'm going to set it up according to my strategy that hopefully, I guess you can let me know. We haven't actually decided if we want this strategy. Do we want to do strategy 1 or do we want to do strategy 2? In Lady and the Tiger, we decided on strategy 2, but I guess we haven't really decided here. So I need your input. Which one do you like?
Strategy 2.
2 works better, I think.
Yeah, I didn't want to speak for you, but at this stage, it makes total sense to go with something that's more familiar looking and that I can set up, even though I haven't even read the details of what the people are saying. So I have more confidence that regardless of what this question is going to specifically do, I have already started. I already am a third of the way there. I just have to write down a bunch of stuff, which might be tedious, but I'm not gonna care about some busy work if it gets me to my answer. And because this is a familiar question, the list of possibilities it's gonna look exactly the same, right? But I will emphasize you have to be sure that these are the only scenarios, the only combinations of what the types of people could be. Only 4. Again, in this case, we're gonna have some problems where it's a little different, so you definitely need to think about what are the possibilities. Is there anything that I can eliminate? Are there more? Exactly. I still need to scan over the question. Okay, in this case, I see only knights and knaves. Okay, and then they speak. Okay, so I can set it up. Each person can only be one of 2 things, and then all the combinations. Okay. Now I understand my strategy. I'm going to go with the scenario I happen to write first. You might have written it backwards or all kinds of things. Doesn't matter. I just have to work through them. And when I do that, I don't see any other scenario. That is the one I'm investigating. I'm assuming what's happening is that they're both knights. Let's see how they behave. This is the first time I'm reading what they're saying. John says, we are of the same kind. True or false? We are of the same kind.
True.
That is true. That might be a good or a bad thing. I don't really look at that right now. I'd like to look at them all speaking, and then I'll look back and compare if everything matches up. Bill says, we are of different kinds. True or false?
False.
False. Now I look at how this compares to the rules. The rule says if you're a knight, then you have to tell the truth. Well, John is a knight. Under my assumption, he is telling the truth, so he's behaving as he should. However, Bill is also a knight, and he is not behaving as he should, according to the rules, and therefore it's not possible. Does that feel okay? I hope so. I hope it feels okay.
It makes sense.
Yeah, and hopefully we see the similarities. It's very similar to Lady and the Tiger. We're just mixing it up a little bit to keep us from not shutting down our thinking. So that wasn't it. Let's go to the next one. I don't know which one it is. It could be any one of these. My next one is John being a knight, Bill being a knave. Maybe just the singular. Bill is just one person. Why are these all plural? I do sometimes write these lists without thinking because they repeat so much. Knight, knave. Okay. John says, we are of the same kind. We are of the same kind. True or false?
False.
That is false. That is false. Now, I will say, because some of you might want to do that, in this kind of problem, I know the rules. I know that if you're a knight, you should always tell the truth. If you're a knave, you should always lie. I can keep that in mind as I work through this scenario. And as soon as I evaluated this false, I can stop and say, wait, John is a knight. He can't lie. He should always tell the truth. And there's a contradiction right there. And when I found the contradiction, I don't have to keep going because it doesn't matter what Bill says now. I already have something that doesn't match up. Or you can be more Lady and the Tiger like and just evaluate what everyone is saying before looking at the rules and what matches and what doesn't. It's not going to be different, it's just a slightly different approach depending on how you want to do it. I could go and look at Bill saying, where's Bill? We are of different kinds. We are of different kinds. That's true, Bill. Yes. Now, when I've evaluated everyone, I can say, okay, well, John being a knight should tell the truth. He doesn't. Oh, it's out. I don't really care, but Bill is out as well because he should lie and he's telling the truth. That doesn't match either, so nothing works here. But as soon as I find one, I'm never going to be able to cancel that contradiction. A contradiction is a contradiction. It just happens that both are behaving contradictory to how they should. So you can choose how you want to approach that. I think for most people, it's not hard to keep the knight-knave rule in mind because that rule doesn't change. Lady and the Tiger, it was a situation where the king keeps saying slightly different things, and I might mix it up and forget as I go. So it's better to do the whole row and look at what the doors are saying, and then double check what the king is saying and see if it matches. Based on different things the king could say. Here, it's always going to be the same. Knights tell the truth, knaves lie. So I can keep that in mind more easily, making it slightly different looking, perhaps, but it's not really. So that scenario wasn't happening. Let's check this one. My next one is knave, knight. Not that it really matters. I'm just looking at what they're saying. Oh, it does kind of matter. Yeah. John says, we are of the same kind. True or false?
That's false.
That is false. They're not of the same kind. They're different. Now, I could look now if you want and say, okay, well, John is a knave. He should lie in whatever he says, and he is. Okay, that matches. So I need to keep going. Haven't found a contradiction yet, and there's still more stuff to evaluate. Bill says, we are of different kinds. True or false?
True.
That is true. They are different. Bill, being a knight, should always tell the truth, and he does. So that also is consistent. And this scenario is very much possible. I'll only be 100% sure if I check the next one, which we can certainly do, and we need to practice anyway. My last scenario to check is knave, knave. John says, we are of the same kind. We are of the same kind is true. And I can stop right there and say, well, John being a knave can't tell the truth. That's not how the rules work. That is an immediate contradiction. I don't even care what Bill says. This contradiction isn't going away. And I can right away say, not possible. And it's out. So there are little shortcuts like that because the rules are so clear, I hope. From one knights and knave question to the next, it's not really going to change. I can keep it in mind much more easily than the rules the king keeps changing. And I can therefore say, John is a knave. Bill is a knight. My writing is extremely ugly, but you get the point. All right, so see the similarities? See how the slight little things that might technically be different, it's not that much. So that takes away from my feeling of feeling intimidated and a little nervous or unsure or whatever. When I focus on how much of it is similar, and how far into the question I can get before I have to really be aware of the rules of this one, then it's not as scary or intimidating, I hope.
Please remember to click the like button if you enjoyed the video, and to subscribe if you want to be notified of more videos. Thank you.